大家好，我是 Olive Branch Allen. So it is well understood now that to have sufficient muscle mass is important for a long and healthy life. But building and maintaining muscle mass actually takes a lot of effort, not just in the gym, but also in the dining table. You need to eat protein to provide the building blocks that your body actually needs to build the muscles. And there's actually been a lot of studies by scientists now who have actually looked into this in depth in order to optimize this process. In this video, I'm going to summarize all these findings for you into a simple strategy so that you don't leave anything at the table when it comes to building muscle, especially if you spent the hard work doing strength training. One of the main reasons why muscle building is difficult is because your body prioritizes resources very efficiently. What I mean is, it will use up all the resources first in order to cover the essentials for you to live. For example, like making sure that your organs are working properly, you have enough red blood cells, and producing all the enzymes and hormones that your body actually needs to live. Building more muscle is actually not considered essential, and it will only divert resources into building more muscle if you have leftover resources, which in a way will only increase the demand for more resources in the future. If your body functions as a corporation, then building more muscle is like hiring a very expensive executive, so it better be worth it. And that's only if the company is making enough money, and in the case of your body, that resource is protein. Another reason why it's difficult to build muscle is because of aging. It is well known that aging will actually make it really hard for you to maintain muscle. We lose muscle as we age, and that's known as sarcopenia. Starting at the age of 30, you will begin to lose 3 to 5% muscle mass with each decade of life, especially your type 2X muscle fibers. These are your biggest, most powerful and explosive muscle fibers. One of the best ways to prevent sarcopenia is by doing strength training, and I've talked about this in my past video. But to ensure you have enough building blocks for building muscle, you have to focus on protein intake. And I'm going to go over 3 main points on protein intake that you need to focus on to optimize this process, namely protein quality, protein amount, and the digestibility or absorption. There are many different types of protein, but they are all made up of combinations of amino acids, and these are the building blocks of protein. Some amino acids can actually be manufactured by your own body, but others cannot and must be eaten for you to use them. These are actually called essential amino acids. The most important amino acids for building muscles are leucine, lysine, and methionine. So when you're choosing the protein that you want to eat in your meal, you want to make sure you hit these 3 essential amino acids. Here's a list of the most common high-protein food items and their amino acid profile. Comparing the 8 of the most common high-protein foods, you can clearly see that they cover all 3 of these essential amino acids, with some more than others. Number 2 is the amount. And the most common recommendation for protein intake is 0.8 grams of protein per kilogram of body weight for someone who is inactive. But according to recent studies, this amount is way too low, especially if you're trying to build muscle. The latest studies show that you should actually target 1.2 to 1.8 grams of protein per kilogram of body weight if you're not exercising. But if you're actually trying to get muscle to grow, then you should really be targeting 1.6 to 2.4. That last chart shows that meat-based proteins have a huge advantage over non-meat-based proteins. But we don't always eat these foods in 100-gram portions. So what we typically will do is drink a glass of milk, which is about 330 grams, or we have beef in a stir-fry, which is about 85 grams of protein. Real scenarios. So when we compare these real-world scenarios, then what we get is still a very convincing picture of where your quality protein will come from. For my weight, and since I am doing strength training to build more muscle, I'm typically going to be targeting about 140 grams of protein. Non-meat-based protein still will contain some of these essential amino acids, but you have to be very careful in choosing the right food types that do cover them, and you have to eat enough of them to meet that target. For example, a typical dinner, let's say a chicken breast, that's about 170 grams, will actually have 55 grams of protein in it, which is pretty good, and will contain all 3 of those essential amino acids that I mentioned before, like leucine, lysine, and methionine. But if you were going for a non-meat-based protein source, let's say white beans, which is already one of the highest ones, then you'll actually have to consume 540 grams of white beans to match that same chicken breast, which is equivalent to about 5 of these cups. If you do decide to do that, then my suggestion is you better warn your partner because you'll be passing a lot of gas. The last point on protein intake is the digestibility and the timing of the intake of it. Digestibility is also known as bioavailability, and for meat, that's about 95%, which means that 95% of all that protein in the meat will be digested and absorbed in your body to be used. Plant protein is about 60 to 70% bioavailable, and that's because a lot of that protein is actually trapped in cellulose, which is fibrous, and we can't actually digest that at all. And so about 30 to 40% of that protein will come out the other end. As mentioned earlier, non-meat-based protein already has a much smaller amount than meat-based protein. So plus the fact that it's not as bioavailable means that you have to eat that much more of it in order to meet your target. So there's a very popular advice that they say you should eat protein within the 30-minute window right after exercise, because that's when you'll be most susceptible to using that protein to build muscle. And that is true. However, studies actually do show that your muscles are still sensitive to protein intake and protein synthesis, even up to 24 hours after exercise. Our bodies are actually much more flexible than originally thought. So that means you don't actually have to panic after a workout that you must intake some protein right away. You can actually take your time and prepare for a high quality protein meal. Having said that, I do probably still recommend that you do take protein right after your workout so that you don't forget to, as the protein target for each day is still quite high. I know that sounds like a lot of protein, and it is, but with a little bit of planning and forethought, it's definitely doable. All your snacks should be high in protein, and that should doubly work in your favor, as that will eliminate a lot of the sugary junk food in your snacking. Protein bars as a high protein snack is a little bit more complicated, so we'll save that topic for another video. But taking a high quality protein powder supplement will help you in getting there. Remember, the whole point is to build and maintain as much muscle mass as possible in order to allow you to live a long and high quality of life. And you just can't get there without the right and proper amounts of protein. That's it for today's video. I hope you found that helpful. As always, please leave any questions or comments below, and I'll see you next time.